Hi everyone, welcome to the Tuesday show. So, this is a show where it's just me and all of you, and I have no guest today. So, today the idea is to share with you whatever I wanted to talk about, whatever I have learned, the people who taught me, and memories, and so this is the day to walk down the memory lane, think of some people who would have taught me something. Hi to Smita, my brothers Barao and Rupesh. Vipasha is here, Swaraj, my sister, is here. So welcome to all of you. So what I thought in these Tuesday sessions that I do with you is that I will share the story of someone that was very important for me and how I got to know them and what did I learn from them and how does that reflect in my life today. One of the things is when we think of business, when we think of our work ethic, and there's Lahari, my niece from London, who just joined, and Narendra, hi, and Narendra, I'll have to interview him one of these days. They're the founders of Nandu's Chicken, and he's doing some amazing work actually in a lot of things. So you'll meet him sometime. So anyway, coming back to Tuesdays, what I thought I would do is I will share with you each Tuesday a person who's been very close to me from my childhood or when I was growing up, and what business lesson I learned from them. Because a lot of times when we think of our own work ethic, how we are, how we work with people. Okay, my sister says I need to be a little louder. Just let me know. I hope you guys can hear me. One of the things is we think we have to go to business school. We have to learn, 5 ways to be successful, 6 ways to, sell, 15 ways to, ask for help, whatever the things are. But without even knowing in our lives, we always learn from people around us in some of the things that we do. Samraj, my other sister, says she can hear me. That's good. So what I thought is I want to use this time with all of you to find people from my past, people who have taught me since I was a kid, and see how it applies to what I do. I mean, I've shared with you about how my teachers have taught me when I was a kid. I have also, Namaste Sareku, and I've also shared with you about how my aunt has taught me in last week's episode I shared with you. So I actually liked that way of thinking of why not I introduce you to people in my life and what I have learned from them. So today I'm going to talk to you about an uncle of mine. So a little bit of a background. My father was a doctor, and he was one of 7 or 8 brothers. When I say brothers, they're not real brothers, own brothers. My father had one younger brother, but they were all sons of different brothers. My grandfathers, there were 4 brothers or something, and their children, which is my father's generation, they all grew up as though they were one family. So, and my dad was the kind of person who would go find all these brothers, no matter where they were, and make sure we all met once a week, or we all met once a month, or, always kept in touch with them. So you'll hear through these things about all those uncles. But today I specifically wanted to share about one uncle. So when I was very young, all my cousins, my sisters, they're all much older than me. So, I mean, they're always, from 12 years older to 25 years older than me. So when one of my cousins got married, I was like, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe very young. And after that marriage, I still remember my dad brought home one of my uncles. I've never met this uncle before. And he was somebody who was in the army. And his name, our last name is Pratury, so he was Pratur. So my dad came home. I still remember my dad came home and said that, oh, you got to meet your new Pratur uncle and his Ramanaya. So he was a very high-ranking officer in the army, and he was like 6 foot tall, extremely fair, incredibly good-looking. I mean, he walked into the house, and I was always like this very chatty, very mischievous young kid who talked to anybody. But I still remember standing behind my dad and looking at him and being in complete awe of him. And like my mouth wouldn't open, I wouldn't say much at all. And we lived in Sanjeev Reddy Nagar in Hyderabad, and they lived in Sainikpuri, which felt like very, very far in those days. So we saw each other maybe a couple times a year or something like that, always at some family functions or these functions my dad would concoct. So all the brothers and their kids would get together, etc. So Sundays were always the times we met. So I might have met him, Ramanai Babai. Babai means in Telugu, father's younger brother is Babai, Ramanai Babai. So I met Ramanai Babai very rarely, at his daughter's wedding and or some occasions in their homes or our homes. And so I grew up, as I said, totally in awe of him. First of all, hardly anybody from my family was in the army. He was an army doctor. And so there was this army life, and he dressed very differently, very smartly. And my dad was like this khadi wearing, kurta pajama person. And here, this person dressed very differently, extremely good looking and all that stuff. So years passed, we had a very cordial relationship. And I went away to America, and I would come home, and whenever I came home, he was not close enough for me to make sure I saw him every time I came. But as he got older, as I got older, whenever I came to India, I made sure I went and met him. Especially after my dad passed away, I felt a little bit more, missing that generation, etc. So I used to go see Ramanai Babai. So in about 99, 2000, I was on a new journey trying to find my connection to India, and I started coming to India a lot. So I want to liken Ramanai Babai to, even in my professional life, there are sometimes you meet somebody, you are in awe of them, you love what they're doing, and you are really amazed, but you never really quite talk to them because you feel, why will they talk to me? It's sort of, you just enjoy them from afar. So anyway, Ramanai Babai was like that. So in about 99 or 2000, I was in India for holidays, and whenever I came, we would go see him. And my sister took me, my sister Swaraj Papakalu, and I went to see him. We had a great time, we had a great conversation, and for the first time, I don't know, it was like he was not my uncle, he was like my friend. And somehow we spent a long time that day, and I just don't know how it happened. We had a very, very long chat, and I just asked him suddenly, do you mind writing letters to me? Because after my dad passed away, nobody was writing letters anymore to me, and I really started missing getting letters. And so I asked him, and then he said, yeah, sure, I'll write letters to you. So I was so excited, so I went away, went back to America. I always like very good letter paper. I have collections of great letter paper. So like this is the envelope, and there's a, paper. This is kind of like this. I'm just showing you the blank one. I just kept one in this file that I maintained for my uncle. So I wrote letters on this kind of a paper and sent it to him. I mean, I always copied the letters I sent also. So here is sort of copies of some of the letters I sent him. So I would write all these letters to him, and he started writing back. So I just wanted to read you a little bit about what he wrote. Now, I saw him for the first time. I told you Bobby Anaya, my cousin who got married. I was very young at his marriage, and that's the first time I have met this uncle, Ramanai Babai. And he came home after that. So my memory of him is when he came home. I don't remember him at the wedding, at Bobby Anaya's wedding. So he wrote this. This is the first letter he wrote to me on 13th March 2000. He wrote this letter to me. And then he said, he wrote a little bit, and then he said, "It is rarely that one is struck with instant affinity with a first look, a love at first sight. First time I saw you was at Bobby's marriage, I think, long years ago. A happily laughing child, an extrovert, a sparkle in the eye, bringing a little sun to the corner you are in, and a lovely complexion, translucent and glowing. After that, our meetings have been far and few, and left me asking for more time with you. This time we had some, and strangely during our talk in my home, I could feel the strong steel of determination and purpose behind that happy facade. I am glad and happy that you have written such a lovely and stimulating letter, and even better that you want to keep the bridge open. I'm a compulsive letter writer." So this is how the letter starts. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4 page letter. And I used to just wait for these letters. I lived in America at that time, and I used to just wait for these letters. And it was so amazing when I got this first letter. I was shocked that, wow, he remembers me from Bobby Anaya's marriage when I was such a young kid. He remembers me. And this whole love at first sight was, we had such an amazing conversation when we sat down and we talked. And I was telling him that, in our life, we put everything in boxes. Even the word love has a certain connotation. It's only associated with a Romeo and Juliet kind of love, or people who are in love or whatever. But, there is something called love at first sight that's got nothing to do with that kind of love, where you fall in love with a person, with an idea, etc. And those are the relationships you nurture. And I told him that I still remember standing behind my dad and peeking over and seeing you. And it was love at first sight for me, to say that, wow, this is an uncle that I have, and I would like to get to know him. So since I was 8, I thought, 7 or 8 or whenever it was, I thought about it. And it took so long for me to actually reach out and become friends with him. So these letters continued, and then we would talk about all kinds of things. And in this letter, he wrote about we talked about everybody from Zubin Mehta to Zakir Hussain to Vikram Seth, or lesser known people like Pranay Gupta of New York Times. And he would write about all these people and say that, how much scope there is to learn. What is there to learn from others' writings, etc. And so he told me that we talked about Mahabharata a lot. He said, this P. Lal's Mahabharata, and then in this letter he writes, since you finished reading P. Lal's, you must read the one by Kamla Subramaniam, very readable book. So even this day, I have Mahabharata by Kamla Subramaniam, by P. Lal, all these things I read because he wrote to me. And and he always, I loved, at the end, he would say things like, in Kundana, means, shall I take leave now? With blessings, bye-bye, So it's always he would always at the end he would be like asking my permission to leave, can I go now? And I would read these letters, and I wouldn't want the letter to end. I wouldn't want the conversation to end. I wanted to go on. So then, this letter was written in March, and then March 2000. Then there is a letter in April. I mean, obviously in those days, or even in these days, when you write a letter and mail, it takes 15 days to reach, and then they have to write and another 15 days to come. So it would take about a month between letters for us. And I would be like waiting for the minute the letter came. Next day I would sit and write a response to him and wait for the answer, like literally the next day, which I know doesn't happen. So so he wrote saying, నీ మార్చి 29న ఉత్తరం నీ చక్కని రాత కనకన రుచిరా తెలుగువారికి నేను తెలుగులోనే రాస్తాను, కానీ మనం మాట్లాడుకునే విషయాలు తెలుగులో ఇమర్చడం కష్టం. సో వాట్ హీస్ సేయింగ్ ఇస్ దట్ you have beautiful handwriting. I love your letters. Since you're Telugu, I would love to write to you in Telugu, but the kind of things we want to talk about is difficult to talk about in Telugu, so I will write to you in English. So, and then it goes. So at that time I was trying to do an interview of different people, and I interviewed like Lakshmi Prakash Bhalerao, and all these sorts of people. So here he says, I like what you're thinking about creativity, writing to be seen and heard. Yes, you must write regularly. Hemingway, mom, especially must write every day for some hours. Like they used to write every day for some hours, whether they are, even when they are on holiday or not, And Hemingway was very particular of getting just right to his eye and ear. It is said that he wrote the last para in a farewell to arms 34 times. No wonder the quality does move you. So he would write to me about these things, and his opinions on stuff, etc. And we would even talk about, let me see, there was one where we talked about love and Romeo and Juliet. Let me read that for you. I mean, by that time I was married, but still we would I would question a lot of things, like, okay, you raised the question of so anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not able to find it. But the point is, there was no limit to our thinking, our conversations. It could be anything. Like one of the things he wrote is that, because I used to get very frustrated with my own thinking. Sometimes I feel that I think a lot, I just wish I could stop thinking. And I would say that I want to be like a parking lot attendant, or I want to be a librarian where I just sit and give books. I don't think, I mean, it's just my mind thinks too much. So I've written it in one of the letters. So he wrote saying that, why do you say a thinking mind is a curse? Mind cannot stop thinking. Let it think so long as the self is not involved. That is the trick. Stopping the mind to think is all nonsense. There is no thoughtless state. Even our Upanishads say so. The restless mind and wandering thoughts can be like when you are working on your project. Can be used when you're working on your project, or when you're filled with the music of Lakshmi Shankar, who was my favorite musician. In the traditional dhyana, the repetition mantra fills the mind and excludes all other thought. That is the way, the mind rests. So he would write to me about, because for me, I could write to him about everything, like I'm trying to do this person don't understand, so I'm very frustrated. Sometimes I think too much. What do you think I should do? Or about his own experiences in the war, all kinds of things I would write. So this is one of the last letters I received from him. So I wrote to him about a wedding that I've been to, and I was so amazed by every little detail that was thought through in this wedding. Like from the time we arrived, we were really taken care of. And so I wrote to him in detail about how we were made to feel really, really important. I mean, they said, okay, if you're here for 2 days, here are the trips that are arranged for you. So like that, they've thought about everything. So I said that, that's a letter I wrote. So he wrote saying, a very fine piece of writing. Even though you made an off-the-cuff description of a great event, a beautiful country full of history, and you moved about the worlds of literati, artists, musicians, etc., a different world, a different universe. One point you made, how well the wedding is organized, how each guest was received and felt that they were wanted. But in an Indian wedding, especially Telugu weddings, are most disorganized. Simple things as the guests come and somebody should receive them, introduce them to the party, never happens. It is strange to see the groom's party seated separately. Wedding is, after all, an alliance between families. So he goes on and on about his opinions of how we organize weddings, etc. Then he says, you talk of a colorless society. Can it ever be there? Even a classless society is impossible. Man is born unequal. No two people are alike. The whole creation is based on inequality. So then he goes on writing about this, about how we should accept inequality and not try to make it, by force equal. So it's really, really interesting. So toward the end, he said, in a sudden spurt of energy and mood of defiance of inertia, I did a couple of paintings. One of them is for you, whether you like it or not. Did you see my painting at Aruna's or Rama's? That's his daughter's. The monsoon arrived early, actually, except for blah blah. And so after when I went there, he gave me that painting, and I still have that painting in my home with me. So what is it that I learned? I have all these letters and I keep reading them, and these were all written in year 2000, almost 20 years ago. And I'm so glad that I've taken the time to get to know my uncle. It's sort of, sometimes we are in awe of somebody. We feel that, oh my God, why will they want to know me? All these kinds of things we have. And what we don't realize is that they too want to talk to you. And hey, Juliet, hello, wow. And so Deepak Ravindran is here. He's an Ink Fellow, Shomitra. So, one of the big things I learned from this whole episode is that the people we are in awe of also might want to know us. You have to make the first move, and you need to not be afraid to ask for it, and also make it happen, because initially you need to what do you say? You need to take the first plunge a little bit. Like I had to write the first letter, etc. And then what followed was a beautiful, beautiful, relationship that I had with him. And I apply it at work also a lot, because there are times when you are in a meeting and you meet somebody and you're like, wow, I really love what they're saying. But why would they want to talk to me? But when you actually walk up and talk to them, amazing things happen. And this is why, like in 2009, all these letters were in 2000 and all that stuff. So in 2008, I just walked up to Chris Anderson of TED and I said, why don't I host TED in India? And he said, yes. I mean, I've been thinking about it for 15 years. Ever since I went to the first TED, I've been thinking about, God, I wish I could do something like this in India. But I never had the courage to do it. So I want to just for a minute show you the painting my uncle gave me. This is the one he wrote about, and then he gave me when I went. This is of a woman singing. Because I wrote him about my love for music, etc. So this is the painting he did, and he gave it to me, and it's there in my house, and with me always. It traveled with me from here to America, then came back from America to India, and at the and you'll see at the here like Ra, just the letter Ra in Telugu, which stands for Ramanaya, and that was his name. So that's the painting that he has done. So anyway, coming back to the lesson is that you have to get up and ask. The worst thing that happens is no change in current scenario. But if you have the courage to ask, look at this. These letters, like from year 2000, they are like new. I still read them. Such, you can kind of see such beautiful handwriting that he had. And I feel as though I'm sitting with him when I read these letters. And it's like I have a peek into his soul in a way that I never thought was possible. And so I use it a lot in my work to say, if something touches me, if something influences me, I always walk up to that person and ask to get to know them. Sometimes they may, we all have facades. We all have, appearances to keep. And sometimes we plain don't have the time, but if you can make that entry into someone's heart, the kind of relationships that can come out of it could be extremely deep. And when I think of all the great business relationships that I entered or projects that I did, they all came out of having the courage to get up and go say hello, and tell someone that I want to work with you, I want to get to know you. And also you have to let things evolve. Sometimes we hurry things, I couldn't have gone to him and said, let's be friends in the next 5 minutes. This was over a long year. We wrote to each other. I wrote whatever I felt like. He responded with whatever he could. We gave it the time to get to know each other. And I was able to share very deep thoughts, and he responded to them. And I didn't feel like, oh, here is my 80-year-old uncle or whatever, and I should only talk to him about this kind of topics. I talked to him about everything. So I think the biggest lesson I've learned out of this was that it doesn't matter who the person is, however important they may seem, however unattainable they seem. In their heart, they just want to be loved. They just want to be recognized. They just want to be, be friends. And so at that time, I think, I can't even remember, he was in his late 80s, I think, maybe in 80s when he started writing to me. The bond that developed between us was very special for both of us. And I so remember seeing him when he was extremely frail, like literally a few weeks before he passed away. And he couldn't get up, he was lying down in bed. And he had like this beautiful long fingers. And I remember sitting next to him and just stroking the hand. And he was telling me that he says, I just can't write anymore. And I said, doesn't matter, I have enough that'll keep me forever. So just make that move, and they're there in your family, they're there around you. They may be your neighbors, they may be your ex-classmates or, whoever. So reach out to the person who really touches you or who you're in awe of and get to know them. It has happened to me where I was very disappointed by the people I was in awe of also, but that's okay. But sometimes when you reach out and be able to say, hey, let's be friends, what can come out could be really, really beautiful. And business is nothing different. Business is about building personal relationships with every customer, every partner, everyone. And sometimes you'll upset each other, sometimes you get along with each other, but always, always, always you make a friend and you acquire amazing things in life. So thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.